Alright, so you've got your PC, and maybe it's getting a bit warm when you're gaming or doing some heavy lifting. You might have heard folks talking about water cooling and thought, blimey, that sounds complicated. Well, I'm here to tell you about all-in-one or AIO water coolers. Think of them as a super efficient cooling system for your computer's brain, the CPU. They are much simpler than those custom water cooling loops you see sometimes, which can look like a science experiment gone wild. These AIOs are pretty much plug and play, well, almost. They are designed to be user-friendly, even if you're a bit new to tinkering inside your PC case, so don't you worry. So, what actually is an AIO cooler then? Imagine a little radiator, a bit like a tiny version of the one in your car, connected by some tubes to a block that sits right on top of your CPU. Inside these sealed tubes is a special liquid. This liquid is really good at grabbing heat. The block on your CPU soaks up all that heat your processor is kicking out, especially when it's working hard. The liquid then carries this heat away from your precious processor, traveling through one of the tubes up to that radiator we just talked about. It's a continuous loop, a neat little journey for the heat to go on. Now, once that warm liquid gets to the radiator, what happens? Well, the radiator has lots of thin metal fins, creating a massive surface area. Fans, which you'll attach to this radiator, blow air across these fins. This air whisks the heat away from the liquid, cooling it right down. Then, this newly chilled liquid travels back through the other tube to the CPU block, ready to pick up more heat. It's a constant cycle, working tirelessly to keep your CPU from getting too hot under the collar. This process is surprisingly efficient, and can often lead to much lower temperatures than a standard air cooler. Why would you want one of these contraptions, I hear you ask? Well, a cooler CPU is a happier CPU. When your processor runs cooler, it can often perform better and for longer, especially if it was getting so hot before that it had to slow itself down. That's called thermal throttling, and we don't want that. Plus, sometimes AIOs can even be quieter than big, chunky air coolers, especially if they have good quality fans and a quiet pump. And let's be honest, they can look pretty swish inside your case with all the RGB lighting some of them come with. It's a nice upgrade for performance, and sometimes, aesthetics too. Okay, so you're sold on the idea of an AIO. Fantastic. Before you start unscrewing things with wild abandon, let's talk about what you'll actually need. The good news is you probably don't need a massive workshop full of specialist gear. For most AIO installations, your trusty Phillips head screwdriver will be your best mate. You know, the one with the cross-shaped tip. Some AIO kits might even include a little Allen key or a specific tool if they use unique screws, but a good screwdriver set usually covers all bases. A few cable ties or Velcro straps are also super handy for keeping wires tidy afterwards, which makes your PC look neater and helps with airflow. Now let's peek inside the AIO cooler's box. You'll obviously find the main AIO unit itself. That's the pump and CPU block, all connected to the radiator by those flexible tubes. You'll also get one or more fans designed to be mounted on the radiator. Then there's the bag of bits and bobs, various screws, mounting brackets for different types of CPU sockets. Intel and AMD usually have different fittings, and sometimes a small tube of thermal paste, though many AIOs come with it pre-applied to the CPU block, which is super convenient. Make sure you check everything is there before you begin the grand disassembly of your rig. Before you even think about opening your PC case, there's a crucial step compatibility check. Not every AIO fits in every case, and not every AIO supports every CPU socket. Check the AIO's specifications. It'll say which CPU sockets it works with, like AM4, AM5 for AMD, or LGA 1700, LGA 1200 for Intel. Also, check the radiator size, like 120mm, 240mm, or 360mm, and make sure your PC case has a spot where it can actually be mounted. Your case manual or website should tell you what radiator sizes it supports. Getting this wrong is a real pain, believe me, so a little bit of homework here saves a massive headache later on. Right, tools sorted, components checked, compatibility confirmed, what next? Preparation is key. Find a nice, clear, well-lit workspace. A dining table is often a good shout. Just put down an old sheet or some cardboard to protect it. Crucially, turn off your PC and unplug it from the wall socket. Don't just shut it down, physically disconnect the power cable. Then before you touch any of the sensitive electronic bits inside, it's a good idea to ground yourself. Just touch a large metal object that's earthed, like the metal casing of your unplugged power supply or a metal tap. to discharge any static electricity you might have built up. Static can be a silent killer for PC parts. Alright, let's get our hands dirty, metaphorically speaking of course. The first big job is usually mounting the radiator and its fans into your PC case. Most cases allow you to mount radiators at the top, acting as an exhaust, or at the front, often as an intake. Decide where you want it to go. Your case manual might offer suggestions. Then, attach the fans to the radiator using the provided long screws. Pay attention to airflow direction. Fans usually have little arrows on their sides indicating which way the air flows and which way the blades spin. You generally want them pushing air through the radiator fins for the best cooling effect. Next up, we need to deal with the CPU area. If you're replacing an old cooler, you'll need to carefully remove it first. Once it's off, you'll likely see some old thermal paste on top of your CPU. This needs to be cleaned off. A bit of isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, on a lint-free cloth or coffee filter works wonders. Gently wipe away the old paste until the CPU's metal lid, the integrated heat spreader or IHS, is shiny and clean. If your new AIO has thermal paste pre-applied on its block, you're good to go. If not, you'll need to apply a small pea-sized blob, or an X pattern of new thermal paste to the center of the CPU. Don't use too much. Now for the main event, mounting the AIO pump block onto the CPU. This is where those mounting brackets come in. Your AIO manual will show you which bracket is for your specific CPU socket, Intel or AMD. Attach the correct bracket to the pump block. It usually clips or screws on. Then, very carefully, lower the pump block onto the CPU, aligning the screws or standoffs with the holes around the CPU socket on your motherboard. You want to apply gentle, even pressure. Secure it by tightening the screws or thumb screws in a crisscross pattern, a bit like changing a car tire to ensure even pressure. Don't over-tighten, just snug is perfect. The final construction step is connecting all the wires. Your AIO pump will need power, usually from a dedicated pump header on your motherboard, often labeled AIO_pump or similar, or a CPU fan header. The radiator fans will also need to be plugged into CPU fan headers, or a fan controller if your AIO has one. Check your AIO manual and your motherboard manual. They are your best friends here. They'll show you exactly where everything plugs in. Once connected, try to manage the cables a bit with those cable ties we talked about, keeping them out of the way of other fans and components. Good cable management isn't just for looks, it helps airflow too. Safety first, always. I know I've said it before, but make absolutely sure your PC is turned off and completely unplugged from the mains power before you start any of this. It's really, really important. When you're handling components, try to be gentle. Don't force anything into place. If something doesn't seem to fit, take a step back, check the manual again, and make sure you're using the right bracket or orientation. Most PC parts are more robust than you think, but brute force is never the answer. A gentle but firm approach is the way to go when seating components or tightening screws. Remember to ground yourself too, to avoid any nasty static shocks to your delicate electronics. Let's talk about a few common slip-ups people make. A big one is forgetting thermal paste, especially if the AIO doesn't have it pre-applied. Without thermal paste, the heat transfer from your CPU to the cooler block will be terrible, and your CPU will overheat very quickly. Another common mistake is using the wrong mounting bracket for the CPU socket, or not securing the pump block evenly, leading to poor contact. Also, check those fan directions. If your fans are fighting each other or not blowing through the radiator, your cooling performance will suffer significantly. And please don't over-tighten screws. You can damage the motherboard or the cooler itself. Snug is the word. Once everything is installed and plugged in, take a moment to double-check all your connections. Are the fans plugged in? Is the pump plugged in? Are all screws reasonably tight? Are the tubes free from any sharp kinks or bends that might restrict liquid flow? A gentle curve is fine, but a tight kink is bad news. Give everything a final once-over. It's much easier to fix a loose cable now than after you've put all the side panels back on the case and tidied everything away. This little review can save you a lot of troubleshooting time if something doesn't work right away when you first boot up. And now, the moment of truth. Put your case side panels back on, plug everything back in, power, monitor, keyboard, mouse, and hit that power button. If all has gone well, your PC should boot up as normal. You'll want to install some software to monitor your CPU temperatures, like WW Monitor or your motherboard's own utility, to see the improvement. Hopefully, you'll see those temperatures looking much healthier. Give yourself a pat on the back. You've successfully installed an AIO water cooler. It might seem daunting at first, but by taking it step by step, you've upgraded your PC. Enjoy the cooler, potentially quieter and better performing rig.